morning, friends. Welcome back to the farm. Hope you're doing well today. It is compost day, so I'm super excited about that. The truck actually should be here within the next 10 minutes. So I'm not going to get started on a project just yet because he needs me to help him back up and show him where to dump the compost. But the first thing we're going to take care of today is harvesting for this wedding, which I'm super excited about because it does two things. One, it's going to bring freshly cut flowers because they're picking it up tomorrow for their wedding on Saturday. It's going to bring freshly cut flowers to a really lovely couple, and they're making all their own stuff. And two, it's going to allow me to then empty the rest of the beds, and I'm super stoked about that. So yeah, it's going to be really fun. It is lovely today. I'm saying that with a weird because it's overcast, which feels great. It was very hot yesterday. It was 90 degrees. And it's the high today, I think, is 70, which is lovely. It's 61 right now, overcast, but it is 89% humidity. So I am sweating, barely doing anything. It's very, very humid, but that's okay. I will take that over heat. So, I'm just looking at all the flowers that I can't wait to harvest. I'm going to go bring all the buckets in, next to the beds where we're harvesting. And then once the compost gets dumped, we can start harvesting flowers. And then I'm going to continue removing irrigation from the beds that we already started on and weeding those beds. And then with the compost is coming a pallet of gypsum. Now, I've talked about gypsum before, and if you're not aware of what I'm using it for, gypsum is excellent for, it is not a fertilizer. What it does is it loosens compacted soils. So I'm adding a ton of it to these soils. There's all kinds of ratios out there. So if you look up the ratios for applying gypsum, it is all over the map. What I have found in talking to lots of small scale farmers, especially flower farmers, is that you can't overdo it on the gypsum if you have compacted soils. So the gypsum gets in there, and as it rains, it loosens up all those really hard soils. And it can take 1 or 2 seasons to do that, so it's not instant. But we are approaching our rainy season, and we're going to hopefully get a lot of rain. That will break down the gypsum and really spread it through those soils. These first almost 10 beds have soil that I brought in last year that was not 100% compost. I made a huge mistake thinking I would save $3 per cubic yard by getting a 50-50 mix of local soil and compost, organic compost. It felt fine. It smelled beautiful, smelled like compost. It went down great. But after we got our first rain, that soil was so hard, I couldn't put my finger into the soil from the surface at all. So whatever was in that local soils mix was probably just a lot of clay. And at first, we lost all the ranunculus. We lost a bunch of other plants because they couldn't form a root system. They transplanted fine, but then once it started raining, that soil got so locked up that they couldn't send out any roots, and so they died. So now I'm in the position of having to open up all those super compacted soils from last year. Now, I could have not used gypsum at all and just put down compost, but that's a lot slower. That will take a lot more seasons for that to work its way down. Adding organic matter is always a great way to open compacted soils. But when you need speed, which I do, gypsum plus organic matter is really the way to go. So that is also why I'll be using my pitchfork to literally poke holes all through those beds and loosen them up by shaking the pitchfork. So I'm not flipping the soil. I don't want to do that because there has been, there are still fungal networks in there that I don't want to destroy. There's also a lot of soil life, earthworms, etc. So you want to leave the soil structure intact, but by opening it up, by putting lots of holes in it like that and kind of loosening it, that also allows the gypsum to filter down as well as some of that compost. And that opens up more channels for air and water to also feed the soil life and help with those compacted soils. So that is the method. I've always used a broad fork in the past, but we have every bed is now in gopher cage, and so I can't use my broad fork. There's not enough space, and also the soil honestly is so compacted those broad tines on the broad fork can't go in. So that's why I need to use the pitchfork, which has very narrow tines, and I can kind of control the depth a little bit better on the pitchfork. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. I'm hoping that by the end of next season, these soils will be remediated enough that we won't really need to add gypsum. But we do live in a clay-rich soil area, and so gypsum might always be something that I need to add. We'll just see. So how do you know what to add to your soil? Get a soil test. This is something that farmers do on an annual basis, sometimes semi-annually. It just depends on what they're dealing with. It is always worth spending the $30 to send it off to a lab for them to tell you what your soil composition is, the chemical composition, and they'll give you advice on what to add to fix any problems that you have. So it's not just about pH. In fact, the soil composition dramatically affects your pH. So that's part of it. But it is really worth doing the soil test. So I highly recommend that. I use Logan Labs. There's lots of wonderful labs out there who will do it. A lot of times your county extension office has a lab or has access to a lab that you can send stuff to. So highly recommend spending that $30 or so to get yourself a soil test if you're having any issues. But even if you're not, it's good to know what's in your garden. Now, if everything that's in your garden, if it's all raised beds and you've brought in bagged soil, don't pay for a soil test because they will tell you, this is bagged soil. There's not much we can do for this. So this is just if you're growing in ground. It's helpful to know what your native soil is and whatever you've put on top. Okay, I'm waiting on a call from the compost guy, and as soon as that's delivered, we'll get started with the harvest. Okay, guys. So you just saw me put down gypsum on these 3 beds and start using my pitchfork. Now, the first section of this bed was all sunflowers, and sunflowers do a great job of opening up compacted soil. They also do a great job of mining minerals and bringing up stuff that the soil at the top, at the root zone, needs. But this whole bed was not sunflowers. I really wish it was. So let me show you the difference between where I grew sunflowers that helped decompact the soil and where I didn't. Okay, right here is where the soil is still pretty loose, so you can get the pitchfork in there pretty wide. Then we hit the area where I did not grow sunflowers, and I can barely get it in an inch. It is so hard. Like over here, it won't even go in half an inch. So this is why I need the gypsum. I can't even get a fork into the ground. So I am pretty sure I am not going to plant anything from this area right here on down this spring. I think during the winter, I will continue to mix in as the rains come and loosen it up a little bit. I'll continue to mix in more of the gypsum and more compost and keep trying to loosen it up. But if I put anything in there, first of all, it's gonna be really hard to even open up a hole to get something to plant in there. Secondly, even if I can plant in the top layer of the compost, they won't be able to put a root system in. It just will fail. That also explains why all the didiscus that I put in here earlier in the year when the soil was still soft from the rains did not grow at all. So, yes, it's a soil issue. It's not a herbicide issue. It is a compaction issue. So if you are experiencing similar things where you're planting stuff and it's just not doing well, check out the soil, stick a fork in there, move it around. If you can't go in 5 to 6 inches deep easily, you've got compacted soils. And even below that, you could still have hard pan, which hard pan is when soils get super compacted. And then the loose soils that are on top, the water filters through and then it sits on that hard pan and never drains away, never gets soaked in. And so then the roots of the plants above it rot. So hard pan can happen from lots of tillage, and this is something that's pretty common in large industrial agriculture. They end up having to go in there with much bigger machines to really break up that hard pan over time. But it also can just be a feature of your soils. So yeah, this is why when you're having troubles, why isn't this plant growing? You know, what's different? It may not be a mineral issue. It may not be a deficiency. It may just be it can't put on a root system because your soil is super hard. Okay, so I'm pretty tired. It is after lunch. I've been out here for about 4 hours, made a lot of progress, got all the flowers harvested. I'll go show you those. I think I'm going to call it a day for now. We did get the gypsum spread. I will come back tomorrow and fork these 2 remaining beds and start moving compost to them. The compost is hot. It is hot. It was steaming when it came off the truck. So I do want to move that compost. Every bed needs about 2 inches. And then I want to let it sit for a few days to cool down, because if you put seedlings in hot compost, they'll just die. It's just too hot, and it's a shock to them. So it'll literally burn their roots. So I'm going to grab my pitchfork here, start putting things back to rights, and then I'll show you the flowers that we harvested. I'm super happy with them. The only thing I still have to harvest is greenery. There's some beautiful birds singing. It's really nice. So I still have to harvest greenery, and I'll do that at home probably tomorrow morning. They're not coming to pick up their stuff until tomorrow evening. So that'll give me time to go through those buckets and put them into prettier buckets, because right now they're in the cat litter buckets, which is great for harvesting, but not so great to give to clients. So I'll reorganize everything so that they can pick them up in big black buckets, and it just looks more professional. Anyway, let me clean up and then I'll show you what the flowers look like, and then we're going to be done for the day. Okay, folks, the microphone on my my external microphone ran out of battery. So I'm talking to you on the camera mic, which is not that great. So hopefully you can hear me well. What we've got here is a nice collection of flowers for this wedding. They're, like I said, they're doing it themselves. So we've got the white mums. We've got these beautiful burgundy ones as well. A whole bunch of zinnias, 2 buckets of zinnias, some lisianthus. We've got cynoglossum and straw flower and marigolds and docus and purple majesty millet. So this, in addition to all of the greenery that I'm going to harvest, I think is going to give them exactly what they want. They're doing mostly just bud vases with a few small arrangements and a little bit of floral stuff on their arch. It's probably actually more than they need, but I just wanted to make sure, and since we have it and it wasn't going to anybody else, yeah, I think they'll enjoy this. I'm really happy to be able to provide this collection. They wanted bright colors, and I think that's what they got. So, all right, I'm going to load this up, get it home. But thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you have any questions on something going on in your soil, let me know in the comments. I don't know everything about soil, I will tell you that. I would suggest, highly suggest, getting Farmer Jesse's Living Soil Handbook. You can buy that at the No-Till Growers website. I would highly suggest getting that. It will help in so many ways. It is about growing with no tillage, but it is also all the amazing ways and things you can do to fix problems in your soil. It is really great. It's like a Bible for me. I love it. So I would highly suggest that. It's very palatable, easy to read, easy to understand. So you don't have to be a chemist or a soil scientist or anything like that, or a geologist to understand what he's saying. So, all right, thanks so much for hanging out. Hope you have a wonderful time in your garden, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.